All right, the Parks Committee will come to order. We'll note that Alderman Johnson's present, Alderman Burnett is present, Alderman Weary present, Alderman Nicholson's excused. Can I have an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Johnson. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Did I say agenda or minutes? I said agenda, didn't I? Yeah. See approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Johnson. Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Not going too fast for you, am I?
Are you in the minutes right now?
We're on
Is that
item
just
5.
the agenda?
That was just the agenda and minutes. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Burnett, Johnson for both.
Joke was lost. Told James we were on item number 5. Keep up.
We passed everything, right? He's still working on number
I'll
one.
get it back. All right.
All right, regular business. First one, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderdorf to consider putting in a baseball field at Red Smith Park at the request of neighbors in the area.
So there was a map attached to your agenda packet, if you take a look at it. And that shows the existing conditions of the park, and it shows where the existing practice ball field is. So there is a practice ball field there. So when the original concept for the park was created 20 years ago, there was a desire to actually implement a practice ball field here and not a full traditional ball field, along with everything else that you see in the current site plan. So at the time, the neighborhood did consist of a lot of young families, so therefore they wanted the practice field and not a formal ball field. And now that the neighborhood is more established and there is children of all ages there, there is a desire now from the neighborhood to formalize the ball field by adding fencing, infield mix, dugouts, and possibly even ball field lighting. Over the last few years, we have been approached several times by residents and the neighborhood association to consider this request, but this is the first time we've talked about it at the park committee. And currently, I did look on the project list that we do keep for all proposed projects, and it is currently not on that list, so we will have to add it to that list when we review the list the next time. So as we're looking at this proposal, there are two questions that really have to be taken into account on whether or not you want to fund this project. So the first one is there funding already available? And the second one, is this ball field a need for the city of Green Bay as a whole, not just the neighborhood or not just the neighborhood. So currently there's no funding available for this project. It has not really been discussed at the committee level before. But if we were to find funding for it, the traditional way of doing it would be to find bond funding through our capital improvements plan next year. So we usually go through that process in the spring of the year. The cost would depend on what improvements you actually want to do out there. So you can either go very basic or you can go very extravagant depending on the end result of what you want. So grading isn't required because the field's already graded as a pretty nice field. So we can see a considerable amount of cost savings there. But in order to do the infield, the fencing, dugouts, and then concrete work associated with getting an ADA accessible walk to it and paving the dugout area, you'd be looking at a cost of about $100,000. If you wanted to actually add sports lighting to the mix to actually have it a lit baseball field, then that would cost an additional $200,000 for a total cost of about $300,000. So the next question that comes up then is there a need for it in the community? And so James can speak a little bit more to that.
So with all, of our program sports leagues, I mean, a lot of them ebb and flow. Sometimes numbers are way up, sometimes they're down, they're rebuilding. We're in a time when the baseball leagues, I guess, are not, they're not as, we don't have as high as attendance as we had, maybe 5 years ago. We have a lot more of the younger baseball participants, like the Bambinos, the Little League, which don't necessarily need. Now that all goes into configuring what Dan was talking about, how much this field would cost, and how the fencing looks, and what accommodation you need for a backstop. You know, it all goes into factor on, you know, how much dugout space you need, how much need, you know, space behind, you know, the home plate to the backstop is. All those things go into configuring what we build there. So currently, in terms of baseball usage, we do not currently feel, we actually had one of our baseball fields this year that had a lot of light usage on it already. So, and you know, with some of our other plans currently in place, like the Perkins master plan, for instance, you know, having that second baseball field already in that master plan, you know, if we continue to move forward and you know, complete that master plan, that would be another baseball field that we currently would have. And honestly, in the big scheme of things in the city, I think it's better suited to have two baseball fields right next to each other. That way you can play JV varsity in the same area. It's very conducive for that. So in terms of baseball currently, I would say that it's not necessarily a necessity. Now, if the park committee and the city council feel differently, and they feel like, you know, it's something that, you know, the Far East Side doesn't necessarily have, the closest field to that really is Edison. So that's kind of the closest area right now that has a nice baseball field that is utilized a lot. That could be in consideration, I guess. But in terms of usage for like Eastside Little League, you know, the numbers for Eastside Little League are fairly good right now. They're very healthy. They are continuing to grow, and you know, that would be something where, at least from a number standpoint and the amount of participation, Little League would be more conducive to saying, okay, there might be a legitimate reason to build a Little League field, you know, for Little League. That's kind of where we're at with that.
Any questions for staff?
We do have somebody from
Is
the
there?
public
Okay.
here, if you want to hear them before you ask your question.
Motion to open the floor.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Johnson, second by Alderman Burnett to open the floor for interested parties. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Yes, sir. Just step forward, give us your name and address.
Jason Frisch. I live at 3469 Baywatch Drive in Green Bay. I do have, I don't know who I present this to. It was brought up to my attention just to
Yep.
show the interest, I guess, within the neighborhood.
Thank you.
At one time, it was brought up that there wasn't any interest in the neighborhood. So we went around and collected signatures to show that there is interest in the neighborhood. The one thing I do want to point out, in case you guys aren't familiar with the area in general or that particular part, the picture is very misleading. The only thing that actually is there is a 3-section backstop. There's no way to like really show that's like a practice field per se. There's no like even infield lines, outfield fence, or anything like that. So the picture's a little misleading. Beyond that, to speak on the mention of the lighting, I don't think that would be necessary, simply because I actually collected these signatures. A gentleman said that he does work for WPS, and he is in a position that has a lot to do with donations to the city, and he said, or donations in general. And he says, if this becomes a thing, he says, don't worry about the lights. I will find a way to make it happen. He says, because that's what I do. So that would be $200,000 off the ticket. Beyond that, first off, I'd like to start and say thank you for your time, giving the Red Smith neighborhood the opportunity to talk with you guys, and the work of the city, aldermen, members, the committees, that you give our community the chance to discuss these kind of topics. With that said, Barbara Dorf's absence, I came to the meeting today to present the petition asking the Parks Department to approve the baseball diamond in the Red Smith Park. Being that I'm here today, I will share my story, but before doing so, while obtaining these signatures from my fellow neighbors, I noticed that there were many that had stories similar to mine, but all unique for their reasoning for why they would want to back the addition of the baseball diamond in our park. Please don't take my story as me trying to push any personal agenda. That's not what I'm here to do. Because if this was one thing that I learned when walking up to many of my neighbors, as I have, it's that they share the same desire, camaraderie, and passion to have a baseball field in their neighborhood, and I'm hoping that this petition shows our backing from what was originally thought of as not desired. In 2 weeks, it'll be 15 years ago that I purchased the property that I live at Red Smith Park. Albeit it was untraditional way to do so. I did skip my second day of my senior year of high school, the day I turned 18, to buy this property. Months leading up to that decision actually led me to 2 areas. One was Red Smith, one was East Pier. What I haven't told you yet is that when I was a kid, I spent most of my days and nights playing baseball. I can honestly say the fondest memories I do have as a child was picking up my bag and heading to the field. Some of you might have shared similar pasts. But when I thought about 15 years down the road, on my 18th birthday, I decided Red Smith neighborhood as a place I want to raise my family. And I decided that factor for me was that someday I could share the same passion, love, competitive spirit, teamwork, and hard work with my children that I once had the opportunity to experience. And that they could also do that without me being home to take them somewhere, being that the closest is Edison. Fast forward 15 years, and unfortunately for some of us, that opportunity has come and gone to do that with our children. Some of us are in the middle of it, and others are approaching that time. But regardless, everyone that signed our petition seemed like a kid again at the thought of being able to share moments similar to the ones I described with their children. In those 15 years, our neighborhood has grown from farm fields to a larger community where kids are making new friends every day at the park, and parents are swapping stories of their children in anticipation of the next school year. With this time, I ask that the Parks Committee consider moving forward in the process of finishing the baseball diamond at Red Smith Park and make it a lot of Children's Day and help shape their stories that they will one day surely share with their children. Today, we have the opportunity in this room to make that happen. I appreciate your time and, again, for this platform.
Thank you, Mr. Frisch. Any questions? Alderman Burnett?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your first name.
Jason.
Jason, typically when, and by the way, thank you for the petition and for speaking tonight. Appreciate it.
No, go ahead.
Jason, typically when these projects come forward these
Sure.
days, there's some donor base or volunteer base association raising funds to help defray some of the costs. That's how Colburn was going to be funded. It was funded, and improvements at Colburn Park for the baseball facilities there, concession stands, the Little League baseball leagues volunteered a lot of time, labor, and money to make those happen. Have you spoke to any neighbors or groups, or you're a member of any Little League association or anything that could help or have discussed fundraising?
I'm not actually part of any of those right now. Actually, my son will actually be picking up a bat for the first time coming up here, and I do plan on getting involved with that. The only real reach out that I got was the gentleman that works for WPS per se. As far as talking to the neighborhood itself for the funding, I did not.
Okay. Yeah, it's I like the idea, I really do, and looking at the different projects throughout the city for improvements in parks, I'm hesitant to be on board with full bonding or borrowing to make that happen, but I'm not trying to discourage what you're attempting to do. It's just, for me, I would prefer that there be some community buy-in, the fundraising aspect, not to raise the whole amount, but just part of it. And it certainly helps then get people energized for that type of development out there. So I don't dispute what you're saying. I think there's a need there. And 15 years ago, the neighborhood was under that assumption that one day there'd be a park there. I don't want to discourage it altogether, but I think we can look at it a little further. So I'll have you if other questions.
Thank you, Alderman Burnett. Alderman Johnson?
Just curious, I mean, from your experience, what would you say is driving the demand in the neighborhood? I mean, we talked about older kids, but I guess what would this field do that the current one does not do?
Right now, the kids, well, first off, the soccer just completely took over. So they have the 2 soccer fields that will actually have 2 soccer fields here right now, but they run this direction. They actually just threw another one over here as is. So they just completely just kiboshed the whole use of that anyways to begin with for any type of baseball diamond or kickball, whichever it may be that would be used in that type of platform. So that put a kibosh to it. But yes, the growing desire is because there is, and it's a little league sized field as where it would actually basically fit for it. It's not gonna be one of the older age groups. So when you did say that the Little League does have good attendance, this would speak to that size. So right now, kids really can't use it for that. There's no even base pass or anything like that. There's nothing for them to really use it for. Like I said, this picture here is extremely misleading. The fence is no bigger than basically what your podium is there, and that is it. That is there. So everyone kind of wonders, like, well, what's that for? And when I was signing up for it to get these petitions, everyone was saying, that's what that's supposed to be? Because that was their exact response. They're like, well, where's it supposed to be? I'm like, well, that's supposed to be the backstop. They're like, oh, we had no idea that's what that was.
So, and kind of maybe, when I'm looking at this, what I'm trying to get at too as well is maybe like, are we looking for just maybe a more defined field where the kids in the neighborhood can recreate versus something that's full-blown with dugouts and fences and bleachers that is intended to host games and tournaments?
Yeah, I don't ever see that area, and this is just my personal opinion. I'm sure you might be able to speak to it because it seems like you might be more of the statistics. But I don't see that facility being ever like a tournament based. Usually those tournaments are going to be where they have multiple fields.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that you could easily just make it where you don't have the dugouts? Yes. Do I think an infield and an outfield fence is required? Yeah. I mean, to get a baseball diamond, I do. When I was younger, one of the things that we did, and we progressed, is I used to play baseball at Law Street. And we put in dugouts as I was actually playing Little League at that time. So to say that that can be done if the Little League, Eastside Babe Ruth, or Eastside baseball sees it fit, I'm sure that's where funding can be, had to do that. I know at one time, your notion of about 100 grand was close. Jane Hansen actually put together pricing for it, I believe last year, and it was like in the 83,000 range, and that was with the dugouts. I mean, I'm sure you could cut out some of that with removing those dugouts.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Anything else you wanted to answer?
I guess, in some this is new to me, I guess. So, is there is all this basically like, okay, it has to get on the books before anything even could happen? Is for what I'm kind of gathering.
And I think we'll talk about that next. And then
Sure.
whatever we decide tonight is going to go to City Council next week on Tuesday. So
Okay.
the Parks Board will recommend something to the council.
Okay,
So this is step one.
perfect. I appreciate it.
Yep.
You guys are good.
Then we're gonna close the floor and talk about it and take a vote.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Motion to
You here for this item too? No?
No.
No, you here for the tunnel?
Yeah.
Okay.
motion to return to regular order of business.
Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Johnson to return to regular order. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Alderman Johnson?
Just a real quick question. To open the floor, we didn't get who had the motion to open it.
Johnson.
You seconded it? Okay. Thank you.
Question for staff. I know you talked about some of those other things, and part of me is obviously empathetic to the desires and needs of the neighborhood, which is why I asked the question if there was a scaled down version that wasn't as costly that could potentially work there. From your perspective, I mean, when you mentioned things like dugouts and sidewalks, I mean, could those bigger ticket items be avoided? And is it possible that we could put in a different style of fence that would define that area, stripe it, make it look like a baseball field, but not have it be a field that is like, again, tournament or game ready? Is that an option?
There's a couple options. So obviously you could take a close look at the fencing and just put the fencing that you absolutely need that's necessary to play there. You don't have to fence the entire field. You can fence off maybe half of it or 2/3 of it and still have the same effect as fencing off the full field. There are a couple of things we would have to do, which that would be the infield mix. So we would, right now it's currently all turf, like he mentioned. We'd have to strip off the grass and put down good quality infield mix. So between that and the fencing, that would be the bare bones minimum. The other thing that you will need is anytime you build anything new in a park, you need to make it handicap accessible. So we will have to do a walkway to it, and at a minimum, provide an area for spectators to pull up in a wheelchair and sit and watch the game. Ideally, you would also make the field ADA compliant and have the dugouts accessible too, which means a little bit of paving there, so that somebody, whether it's a coach or a player, they would have access to that field too.
But do we have to make those investments if the field's not being used for competitive play?
Anytime you build something new in a park, you have to make it ADA compliant. And now,
So
that's
putting
what
up a
the- that's what
fence
the
is
federal
considered
laws-
building? I just want to understand
Yeah.
the laws.
Typically, if you improve something, yes, I would have to say yes, that code would kick in. But we can get a final determination from the law department on that and see if that's the case. That would be my guess.
Okay. And if this facility were built into something that was more, again, dugouts, all that, is this a space that you would program?
It's definitely a space we could program. I mean, any facility that we have the capability of programming,
Yeah.
so. I mean, it definitely could be, and the level of programming would affect, I guess, what we built. I mean, for example, if we went bare bones minimum per se, if that was what we're talking about, we could still, most of the current little leagues, could play on that, even without lights. I mean, there's a lot of our fields that don't have lights right now. So Colburn, there's only one field with lights right now. So, and we play little league games there. It really just depends on what the intent is, I think. If it's more of a neighborhood ball field, or if it's actually going to be utilized for league play, I think that's where it starts to change the scope of what that project is.
Okay. So I'm kind of with Alder Burnett on this, and that, I mean, I think we need to start watching those bonding dollars. But my ears also perked up when I heard we could potentially have a donor for lights. To which I'm thinking that's the match, right? Hey, if we fund the field, you fund the lights, kind of thing. I mean, and now the city has a lit field. Is that something that you would say is in demand? Or would be properly utilized?
Well, I think for Little League fields, there is a demand for additional fields, like James says. If you're talking baseball, the demand isn't quite there for the field. So
just to clarify what kind of that means, I mean, you're talking about a fence length for baseball that's at least 285 feet, which that current locationally pretty much barely fits that, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd go way out to almost, the road if you're doing a fence that's 285 feet. For Little League fields, you need maybe 220, it fits much better in that space. So
a lit field wouldn't be this would not be an ideal location for something like that.
for Little League, possibly. For baseball, I think there's other locations that could be more conducive, yes.
Does Little League play at night?
Little League does play at night.
Okay.
It pretty much doubles the number of games you can have if you have a lit field.
Okay.
Alderman Burnett?
Yeah, thank you. Where was this on your radar as far as master plan or capital improvement plan for parks? Was this something that,
like I said, we've been discussing it with a few times over the last few years. It has not made it onto that project priority list as of yet. So I guess that is something that we'll have to discuss when it comes time to bonding. Where does it fit in the priorities as a whole for all other park projects?
yeah, I'm kind of in favor of building things where the trend seems to be going, and just curious, these Gaga balls or Octoball pit, I mean, how many of those do we have in the city? Is there anything like that in this side of the town?
As far as the Gaga pits go, there are currently none in any of the parks, but there's a few school sites that have them.
Yeah, super
And,
popular.
we're thinking about putting a few in, but we just haven't.
What's the cost?
that yet. A few $1,000s for materials.
Yeah,
and
and
our
I-
park crews would build it. But
I don't think it's a trend. I think it's an incredible workout for us older guys. I can hardly keep up with my kids. So it's just a matter of maybe 100,000 for baseball versus 20,000 for 10 of these things throughout the park system. I mean, want to engage the youth and physical activity. I'm not insensitive to the need for the baseball field. Does this area, Red Smith has a neighborhood association,
Yes,
right?
and they are in support of this project and implementing this into a formal ball field, so.
When
I've
you
heard
say
from several members.
just the members or the actual association, a letter of support?
I don't recall if the association ever gave me a formal letter of support, but I've been working with Jane Hansen on this, and she has told me it has come up in the meetings, and the neighborhood association is definitely in support of it.
Have they talked about fundraising or?
It's never gotten to that point.
Okay.
And like I said, we've had these discussions for maybe 3 or 4 years, if I would guess.
Sure.
It's come up a few times. It's not a regular occurrence where we talk about it, but a few times over the last 4 years, I would say.
So where I'm going with this is I don't want to, do receive and place on file. I think if the gentleman came forward with the signatures, did the work, showed support in the neighborhood for the general idea, maybe we could see if there's more.
I do have a recommendation for
Sure.
you to consider for a motion. So because we don't have any current funding in place and we go through that process every spring when we look at all the park projects as a whole, we usually discuss all of the proposed projects that are in place and where they fit in a priority sequence. So what I would recommend is that we consider the request to install a baseball field at Red Smith Park at a future park committee meeting as part of the 2019 capital improvements plan approval. And so basically, it's not receiving and placing it on file and don't discuss it again. We will discuss it in the spring when we look at our total bond request. And at that time, we'll have a big picture of all of the other needs in the city, and then we can determine where this request fits within the big picture.
I would be happy to make that motion, but before I do so, if you could then, based on this, if it passes the council, do reach out to that neighborhood association, let them know, and
Sure.
see if they can get the ball rolling with possible fundraising. Would make that decision in spring much easier if we had some matching assistance of the lighting or other funding. So maybe, who knows, maybe we talk to the neighborhood association, although there could be a handful that want a baseball field. Perfect example in our neighborhood, James, North Park, I just assume people would like that developed in some way. People are okay with the natural setting of the place, so just because a handful of people are in favor doesn't mean the whole neighborhood's in favor. So I would definitely want that to be considered. And Alderdorf would take the lead on that, I'm sure. So I'd like to make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Burnett. Could you read it again?
Sure.
Please.
To consider the request to install a baseball field at Red Smith Park at a future park committee meeting as part of the 2019 capital improvement plan approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Johnson, and did you have something to?
Yeah, I was actually, Jesse hit it before, or I should say after I raised my hand, but it's, I felt the same way, that especially if you got someone who thinks that they can raise the money for lighting, I think that makes that discussion go a whole lot easier.
Is that something where, when you brought up Coburn, is it like you're asking, the association or whichever to come up with the 2/3? I mean, is there usually a magic number or silver bullet?
If it's right with the committee, without objection, I'm just going to open the floor.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Did you want to come up to the podium just for?
Sure.
Technically, we're enclosed, but I'm just, without objection, we're opening the floor so you can talk. Yeah.
Okay, is that something that, you guys normally have it's a 2/3 thing to get it back where the city puts in their portion of it? Or is it something where you guys are actually looking for 100% of the money to come from private donations?
We've seen all kinds, right? Director, a lot of
Yeah.
50% matches.
What I would say is, I can talk to the association and just talk about the options. And basically, I think what they're asking is the association in a place where they feel that they can complete any fundraising for this project? And if so, bring a fundraising proposal forward at the time where we discuss this again in the spring. So it's not actually setting limits, it's more or less saying, what do you feel as a group you're capable of doing from a fundraising standpoint? and then we'll talk about it when we talk about the funding for it.
And then when you're what you're saying is that we can, at that point in time, say that, hey, we can secure 2/3 of this pricing for you, it could jump it up the priority list because of that reason.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're putting a 2/3 contingency on
No,
this.
no.
It's what do you feel as a group you can be successful at fundraising for? So it's not actually going out and knocking on doors right now and asking for money, because technically the project isn't approved yet. So we really don't want you to be doing that. It's more or less talking as a group on a broad scale. What do you think you can tackle as a group? And if the answer is, we can fundraise X percentage of, a $100,000 project, then they'll take that into consideration. If it's, we'll do the sports lighting, they'll take that into consideration. And if your decision is, look, we don't feel we would be successful as a group fundraising, well, that'll also be taken into consideration, so.
And I'll kind of tell you where I'm coming at on this angle is, it's neighborhood use versus city use.
Sure.
And so again, if it's truly only the neighborhood that's gonna use it, I have a harder time, approving full funding to build something out. But it would make it a little easier knowing that there was some co-funding to go along with that.
Sure.
That could be turned into a city use, even if the city doesn't have a high demand for it.
Yep.
Because then in essence, the money that the city would put in could perhaps equate to an amount that is equivalent to make it a good neighborhood use. Does that make sense?
No, it makes
So that the money that you raise makes it a city
Yep.
use, and now we're like, okay, that's a win-win project.
No, and I was in the same boat as you as soon as the gentleman told me that, hey, I could donate lights if you really want. I was like, that opens up the whole door to a whole other thing. It's much wider use. And like I said, as far as, the usage goes, there's nothing nearby, for these kids.
You have a question?
If I could,
Sure.
yeah, just to put it in perspective too, I represent the 12th district, was the far west side of the city, and neighborhood association out there, Fritch Park, interested in a splash pad. The splash pad costs $75,000, $100,000, and that's on my radar to possibly get into the capital improvement plan, but I realize the nature of very scarce resources. How do you fit that in a priority list of all the other priorities in the Parks Department throughout the entire city? So I told the association, when the time is right and you're willing and able to really push on getting this thing done, whether that be raise some of the money, do corporate matches, whatever that fundraising mechanism will be, let me know, and then we can push forward. Because if I put that in the capital improvement plan now, where would that be in the priority list? But if I can have the association raise 10,000, 20, whatever the value of that is to the neighborhood, then it helps defray some of that cost. So it seems like you're a very passionate person, and this could be your project within the group, so I don't want to discourage you. I think
Sure.
And when Chris and I lived in the same neighborhood when Colburn Park was being discussed, there was a really vocal group of people that wanted that pool replaced or rebuilt, and the park director at the time said, slow down a little bit, you got to make sure you get the friends group together, you got to talk about what a realistic fundraising goal is. And now, politically speaking, it has been a success, but many obstacles that got in the way, but you'd be surprised if this really the will of the neighborhood to get it done, the people are going to come out of the woodwork to help fundraise and support it. So this just keeps it open so you can have the discussion with your neighbors and the neighborhood association.
Sure.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll close the floor, and we have a motion in a second. I just wanted to mention for the record, I did speak with Alderperson Dorf today, and she understood that this request really would just kind of get it in the hopper of projects. She didn't expect it to be moved to the top of the list. So I did speak to Council President Stoyer. His concern was he has Perkins Park in his area. They've been waiting patiently to kind of redo their Perkins Park master plan with the baseball field, and his concern was, we have a list this tall of requests, and we have this much money every year, so you can take this much out of a stack of this, and so you want your money to go the farthest and to do the most bang for the buck. And so he didn't want any of his projects that have been waiting a while to get knocked out. Not that yours, would do that, but you can see where maybe if the fundraising came in And you can see where the city would get a lot more bang for their buck by partnering. That helps a lot. So I'm in favor of the motion. And any other comments? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. This will go to council next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Who originally made that? You made that?
Burnett Johnson. Number 2, consideration with possible action on the approval to transfer all available 2018 Bay Beach revenue from the Bay Beach 214 Operations Fund to the Bay Beach 436 Capital Improvements Fund to pay for the site work associated with the Ferris wheel donation at Bay Beach Amusement Park. Does it have a name officially? Is it Big Wheel or is it?
We have not put a name to it yet. We'll work on that. So, as you're all aware, the park committee did approve the donation of a Ferris wheel from the Friends of Bay Beach. This is a 100-foot Ferris wheel, so it's a pretty substantial donation. So this $2.1 million donation included the purchase and erection of the Ferris wheel. What it did not include was the installation of the site work that goes along with the Ferris wheel. So that would include the utility work to get the electric and the fiber optic to it and the water line. It would include all of the walks leading up to it. It would include the queue lines, the entrance and exit ramps, and then the footings also. So we did hire a consulting engineering firm to design this site work, and they're in the process of finalizing the bid documents. We hope to put this out to bid in the next couple of weeks. And we're hoping to begin construction on the footings yet this fall. So if that's successful, then the wheel is planning to be delivered in January, and it'll be erected in January and February. And then as soon as the snow melts and we're able to, we'll finish up the site work, which is all of the concrete work. So if all goes as planned, we'll open up the ride at the opening of Bay Beach next year. So each year, for those of you who haven't been on the committee previously, so each year after the Bay Beach season ends, staff usually gives a presentation of how much revenue was generated for the year out at Bay Beach. And then we also discuss which projects we would like to tackle the following year using the extra revenue that was generated. So this year, what we're requesting to use the revenue from the 2018 park season, which is currently in process, is to fund the site work associated with the wheel. Because the wheel hasn't been bid out yet and Bay Beach is still in operation, we don't quite yet know what the final revenue is going to be, and we don't quite know what the final cost is going to be for the site work. But what we're asking for is approval for staff to transfer all available revenue over from one account to the other to fund this. And then what we'll come back and do in the future after the bids are in and we award the bid, and we'll come back at a future date and give you a presentation on what the exact revenues were and what we spent on the site work. If we don't go through this process now and instead of waiting for the season to end, we're not going to be able to meet our construction timeline because we won't be able to award the bid for the site work until the funding is in place. So this isn't typical of how we would normally do things, but due to the circumstances, we're requesting approval to do it. And I guess that's my presentation.
Questions? Entertaining motion. Move to approve by Alderman Burnett.
Second.
Second by Alderman Johnson. Under discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, consideration with possible action on approval of the design, construction, and dedication agreement with the Green Bay Optimist Club for the construction of a concession stand with restrooms at East River Optimist Park.
I apologize because I have several items on the agenda where we have had last-minute changes. We just weren't able to get you this stuff ahead of time. So the changes that you see in this document, they were just modified today by the law department, so that's why you didn't get a copy prior to me handing it out right now.
Any major change?
Oh, well, let me kind of review here what's going on. So like I said, the law department, we've been working with the Green Bay Optimist Club on this agreement for the last week or so. And the final draft, which you see in front of you, was just approved by the law department today. So in 2013, the Park Committee and City Council approved the donation of a concession stand with restrooms at East River Optimist Park. If you take a look at the graphic, I do have a map in there in the agenda packet, which shows where that concession stand will be located after it's built. So this project, it was approved in 2013, but it was delayed for a few years to complete the fundraising and to go through the planning process for the design of the building. So the group now has enough money to move ahead with the construction of the building. And actually what was approved was a donation in full. So there was no commitment to the city to build the concession stand with the restrooms. So they will be funding 100% of the construction costs. And due to the recent bidding law changes that we discussed at a previous park committee, this group has also requested to hire their own consultant or hire their own contractor and oversee the construction of the building. After it's completed, they'll donate the building to the city. And of course, this will require that the Green Bay Optimist Club enter into a similar agreement that we did with the Friends of the Sanctuary for the addition of the 4K building. So we use that as a template, and really all that we did in this agreement is we just changed the names of the entities and then the scope of work. But all the nuts and bolts stayed the same as far as what approvals there are, what insurance they're going to be required to get. So nothing really changed from the 4K project. So as I mentioned, this agreement does outline the process and the approvals their group will have to go through in order to ensure that the building is constructed to our city standards. And this would include the plan review process, the permitting, construction inspections, insurance requirements, and how to select approved contractors. Members of the group, they wanted to be here for questions, but they had prior commitments and couldn't be here. They did want me to mention the fact that, just like at the last meeting, they did want to discuss the possibility of waiving the fee for inspections that's listed in section 3E. And so if you recall from our discussion at the 4K meeting, the law department would like that to become standard for future agreements, but in this, when the fundraising was approved, that really wasn't discussed with them because this is a new agreement because of all the state law changes. So the law department is okay if you feel as a committee that you would like to waive those fees. And those are listed in section 3E of the document, which is, what page is that? It's page 3. So under inspection, what we are asking them to pay for is $50 for each site visit that the city has to do to inspect it, for a total cost not to exceed $1,000. So that's what's being asked. Now in this case, they feel that it's a hardship for their group to pay that fee. This project is a much smaller scale project than the Wildlife Sanctuary project was. So $1,000 coming out of this to fundraise to pay the city in essence for a building they want to donate is a hardship for their group. So they did want to mention that. At the last meeting for the 4K, I believe that the fee was waived, but then it was added back in at council, I believe. I can't recall how we left it at the 4K, but that's irrelevant at this point. So I don't know if you have any discussions on that fee.
Did have a question,
Sure.
not necessarily regarding the fee, but
Yeah.
a building like this, 300,000?
It'll be more in the lines of 100,000.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think they're gonna try and secure donated materials as part of this
I see.
also.
But if we built it?
If
I'm
we
saying
built
had
it,
to
if we built it, it would be probably in the 2 to 250 range would be
Oh,
my guess.
substantial.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, regarding the inspection fee, I'm a little uneasy about it, establishing a pattern of waiving that rationale for the 4K at the wildlife sanctuary was that they were raising a lot of money.
Mhm.
So, it's sort of insulting in a way to then ask them to do that. But the rationale for this time around is that it would be a financial hardship for someone not raising a lot of money. So it's kind of both ways. Both sides of the spectrum are going to use that as a reason. I don't remember what we did at council. I know Alderman Nicholson had a concern, maybe
I
pulled
believe
that.
it
I think we left
was
it,
left
I
it.
think we left
The
it the
waiver
same.
was
Now that I
left
think
there.
about it, we left it the same at the council and it wasn't pulled or discussed.
So it was waived, right?
It was
The
waived.
inspection fee. I mean, I'd be okay with waiving it again. Either we gotta commit one way or the other, because every group, I mean, if they're gonna be raising money on our behalf, the city's behalf, then we have to commit one way or the other.
One thing to note is for future projects, when we begin a fundraising effort, we now have a document that we can point to and kind of go over all of these items with them prior to the approval of, or giving them approval to fundraise for the project. So it'll be spelled out to them that those fees are part of the project. And so hopefully it'll be a non-issue in the future. But in this case, like I said, the donation was approved in 2012 or 13, and they're just getting to the project now, and this is a new document that was presented to them.
That's a good point. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Johnson?
Just to the inspection fee part, I guess I think I look at it with different rationale, and that is we have organizations that want to give us value. They want to give us something of significant value, and it just seems kind of silly to me that we feel the need to invoice them for unbudgeted revenue, to send our own inspectors out there on a project they're giving to us. I mean, so that's my rationale, I think, for waiving it. And, I mean, unless there's more discussion, I would make a motion to approve with the removal of 3E, or at least the removal of the fee component of it.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Johnson, second by Alderman Burnett, to approve with the change that the inspection fee be waived in E. I think we delete E, right? We just,
Is
or
there,
would we delete E?
is there more verbiage in there about subject
Let
to
me just take a
inspection?
look at it.
Because we wouldn't want to, yeah, not inspected, right?
We would just remove the last few
Okay.
sentences, so just remove the fee associated with that.
Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4. Let me know if I'm going too fast, James.
Nope.
All right. Consideration with possible action on approval of a WPS utility easement for the relocation of an electric service at East River Optimist Park for the proposed concession stand.
This is another one where I just received the easement yesterday from WPS. I apologize for the lateness of getting it on the agenda packet. So this fall, the city of Green Bay will be relocating the Law Street cul-de-sac and also relocating and enlarging the parking lot, along with installing all the walks to make the park fully ADA compliant. So it's the same map that you just looked at for the concession stand. You'll see what we're going to be doing to the rest of the site. So there's currently an electric service transformer on site, and it powers the ball field lighting for the south field. This electric service will need to be moved because it's located right in the middle of our new parking lot. Because like I mentioned, we're expanding the parking lot and relocating it. So we'll have to move it about 80 feet southwest of the current location. And then the new concession stand will be also powered off of this electric transformer and this electric service. So we'd like to begin construction on the city portion of the project later this fall, so we do have to get that transformer relocated prior to the start of construction. So in order for WPS to install any electric service, they do require a formal utility easement be in place before they'll do the work. So that's what you see before you. There's a graphic on the last page showing where that easement will be located. So if the park committee does approve this easement, the original easement, there is one for the existing service. That easement will be abandoned, and this one will take its place. So what they're proposing, I believe, is a 12-foot wide utility easement through the park, Just take a look at that. Yep, 12-foot wide utility easement. That's pretty typical whenever we do an electric service to a facility. The law department has not seen this final document yet, but it is very standard language, so which we typically use on almost every utility easement. But just in case there's something in here that is new, what I would recommend is that you approve this easement contingent upon the review and approval by the law department also. Just to be sure that there's nothing in here that I missed that is different from our normal easement. But like I said, these are pretty standard agreements that we put in place regularly, so.
Any questions on this one?
Why doesn't he have a law degree? I'll move to approve with the recommendation.
I'll second that.
Motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Johnson to approve at the recommendation that it pass to the law department first for review. Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Quick question, for staff. Do these items that are presented to us at the meeting, do these get added to civic clerk later?
They will be added to the council agenda on civic clerk.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Thank
all
you.
of the council members will see everything I'm handing out today.
Printed stuff.
All right, number 5, consideration with possible action on the approval of a lease agreement with Cement Construction Service Corp. for the construction and maintenance of the downtown pocket park.
Again, this is another one last minute. These final changes were made about a half an hour before the committee. I apologize. So as you know, we've been talking about the downtown pocket park a few times. We've already discussed the budget for it. We presented the concept to you at a previous park committee. And as you may remember, the site is on private property. So in order to allow the city to construct and maintain the park, we will need to secure a lease with the property owner, allowing us to do that. So we have been working with the property owner and revising this lease agreement with them over the last week. And we were hoping when we put this on the agenda that this would be the final lease agreement. And that's why we put it on the agenda. But unfortunately, there's a few minor details. The nuts and bolts are here, but there's a few minor details we're still trying to work out with the property owner. Ideally, we'd like to begin construction on the park in the next few weeks. So we brought this lease forward just to present it to you, and if you feel comfortable with it, we would, like approval for the lease, even though it's not 100% completed. There are a few items that I'll just point out in the lease agreement so that you're aware of what it says. So the first item is actually the owner of the property is not Smet Construction, which is what's listed in the agenda item. It's actually Bay Lake City Center Condominium Association. So that has changed from the agenda item. The lease, as currently written, it'll be in effect for a period of 10 years and will automatically renew in additional 5-year increments unless the city provides notification to the association for us to withdraw from the agreement. Within the period of the lease, the city would be responsible for all costs associated with the construction and the ongoing maintenance of the pocket park and the adjacent landscape within the boundaries specified within the lease agreement. Now, in the agenda packet, I did include the maps for this, so you can see quite clearly where that lease agreement is located in relation to the properties. So when the lease expires, the city would be required to return the site to a similar to the existing conditions, which if you've been out there, it's currently basically a concrete sidewalk for the most part. So when the park goes away, we would be required to remove it and put it back as concrete sidewalk. Because we weren't able to work out all of the details, like I said, we're close with the nuts and bolts of things. What I would recommend, and if you don't feel comfortable with this, we can discuss it some more, but what I would recommend is that you approve the lease agreement contingent upon the law department review and approval of the lease agreement. So basically what it's saying is you're okay with the nuts and bolts, but you'll allow the law department to tweak it as necessary to protect the city and make sure they're comfortable with the final language. Once the law department's okay with it, then they will have the authority to sign the lease. So that's what I'm requesting, and the only reason I'm requesting that is because, like I said, we would like to begin construction in a few weeks if possible. If we bring this back to the next park committee and city council, the lease would not be approved until towards the end of September, and then we probably wouldn't have construction going until October, November, and it might get too cold and it might become a spring project, so.
That's because we meet once a month in September.
Mhm.
Okay, Alder Johnson.
Will this, so will this show up at the next council meeting?
What will show up is what you see in front of you, will be attached to the agenda packet. If we're able to finalize it prior to council, we'll bring an amended one and highlight that at the council that it is final. If it's not finalized by then, this is what the city council will be seeing.
I mean, the easement seems like one thing to me. I just don't like the practice of us getting into this, you know, we can't get it done before the meeting, and so we're just gonna ask you to do it on good faith. And we may not have it done for council, so we're gonna ask council to do it on good faith. It just seems like a bad practice to me, and particularly with a document that, well, I get that the lease is $1. Who's to say that the attorney doesn't talk with Bay Lake? And I'm not suggesting this would happen, but like,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, all of a sudden $1,000 seems like a good idea, and now we've essentially authorized our attorney to do that. So, again, it's an extreme example, and I understand that. But I think council should really be looking at final documents. And so, I'm okay at the committee level saying that, with the understanding that we do a better job, I think, with getting these things to us on time. But I think we need to have a final document at council.
And I agree with you 100%, and I think from past practice, even Alderman Weary can hopefully attest that we usually are pretty good about it. In this case, there was a lot of moving targets, and the timelines kind of played
Part
a
of the
role
reason.
in it, and along with council's only meeting once a month, so.
Yeah.
But,
And I wanna be
hopefully
clear,
this
this
is
is-
not gonna be the norm, that's
Yeah.
not our intention by any means.
And it's,
But-
and like I said, I want to be clear that this is not a judgment on
Yep.
the performance of the staff or anything. I understand workloads ebb and flow. You know, but I do think it's important that if the council's going to make good decisions for the city, we have to be privy to
Yes.
all of the information that's out there.
And our hope is to finalize it prior to the council, and we'll present the final one at that point.
Alderman Burnett, anything else, Alderman Johnson?
I mean, I would make that motion, but I would also add the contingency that the expectation is that the final document is presented to council. So if we've got to put in an extra hour's worth of work to get that done, I think that's what I would like to see.
So was it to approve with the final document
To-
presented to council?
Correct.
Okay. For a second?
I'd say that's a good motion. I
Alderman
second.
Burnett.
Yeah.
Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Gives the law department a week. And I left my meeting. Number 6, consideration with possible action on the request by the Park Committee for staff to develop a cost estimate for a simple Green Bay Council President's plaque. I think it's attached in here.
Yep, so there's a graphic attached to the agenda packet. And so at the June 13th Park Committee, staff was directed to develop a cost estimate for a simple plaque design that lists all of the past council presidents. So we did work with a local company, found a standard plaque that they sell, so it's not a custom order, to help keep the price down. Excuse me. And so for approximately $600, the city could purchase the standard plaque that you see there. That will hold 96 names. There's currently 82 past council presidents, including the current one. So there is room for 14 more, which would take us through 28 more years if we went ahead with this plaque design. Now, obviously, if you want to change the plaque design, that could increase the cost if you want something a little more unique or special, but we were asked to put together a cost for a simple plaque design. So that's the engraving is also part of that $600 expense. So we can engrave all of the names on there for that $600. Any future engraving, I believe, is $7 for each individual one. So every 2 years, we'd have to invest $7 to keep it current. So that's in summary what we found as we looked into it some more. It just comes down to whether or not the city council wants to approve funding for it and move ahead with
I
implementing.
appreciate you doing the digging on this, and I know I had sent some suggestions, and you did a good job. This is exactly what I was thinking, something basic, not
Mhm.
flashy. And recently, actually, we had some donors come forward and said they would pay for all of it. So.
Well, I was just going to suggest that maybe the formal council president association would want to do that, so there you go.
Somebody is willing to step forward and pay for it, it's not me. So, unless you have any other questions or suggestions, my suggestion would be to approve the original request contingent that no city funds be used.
I like that.
Yeah, I do. I'm curious. Are you willing to say who?
Well, they're not sure they want to be anonymous yet, so I might know by next week. They may want to put the name on there, may not. They might just want to donate it.
It's right
No, yeah.
I'm fine.
No, it's nobody in my family, I can tell you that
I'm
much.
just joking. I'm fine.
It's my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
As long as no city funds are used.
No.
I mean, I'm fine.
Is it a second?
So,
So the motion was,
We're not going to make them pay an inspection fee, are we?
Motion by Weary. Second by
Yeah, I'll make a motion, that's fine. Second by Alderman Burnett, discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Does make it easier, as we're trying to tell them, if you have donors who step forward, it kind of, well, with those inspection fees, maybe it can be something where if they pay 100% of the project, well, I'd be more than happy, but if they pay 1% of the project, well. All right, what do we have? Director's report on updates and recent activities of the Parks, Rec, and Forestry Department.
All right, well, we've had a lot of recent activities. July and beginning of August, of course, and we only have one meeting a month, so we have a pretty long list in here if you guys want to check it out. There's definitely a lot of good stuff that we've done in our Park and Rec department over the last month or so. A couple highlights. We, of course, had our Kitty Carnival at the end of July. We had one of the great judges is here with us that judged the booths and
It's fun.
the parade. It was a good night.
Artwork was-
We had over 2,000 people that came to the Kitty Carnival. It was a great night. We had a Lego event out at Bay Beach also, kind of the weekend before that, which we saw once again, over 3,000 people attend that event. Out at Bay Beach, we had our Elvis night last Wednesday on the 8th of August. We serve up peanut butter and banana sandwiches and do night rides in the Zip and Pip and the Falling Star and keep the grill open until 10 p.m. A little different. Normally we close at 9. Couple playgrounds. The playground program does close up shop on this Friday. So all 36 playgrounds will be done with the playground program as of this Friday. Playgrounds are still open though. Come out and enjoy the playgrounds all year round. So we served. This year, we once again hit a record for number of lunches we served. We almost reached 200,000 lunches in our playground program that we served throughout this summer. And a special thanks to the Green Bay School District Food Service, for that partnership and such a great partnership we have in our city to do that. We have a little bit of bittersweet. We have a pool closing down on Sunday, Colburn and Joanne's. It's the end of the season for pools. Sunday, Joanne's and Colburn closed down. The current Colburn will be the last hoorah on Sunday. So, but we're going to open that back up next year, as we know.
Totally different. You've been out there.
Resh Pool though will stay open until next Thursday, so the 23rd. So we do the reason why we close down pools already on Sunday is because of staffing. We just can't staff 3 pools. Kids go back to high school and sports and band and all that stuff, and also college. And but we will keep brush open until that next Thursday. Bittersweet part about Colburn is we do, staff hired the engineering consultant to put, to start putting together the plans and specifications, and so that consultant has begun work on this project, so it's exciting. But next year as we open up Colburn again. A couple other things, Fit in the Parks, our 4th annual Fit in the Parks, once again was a great, a great addition to what we do, great success. That end of the date is next Thursday also, August 23rd. But then we roll right into, fall softball, fall football, youth dance, sports, all that good stuff. So, and there's more information on here. There's a lot of other stuff that we've done throughout the years. And Bay Beach will be starting Labor Day weekend, full days, and then in September it goes till just the weekends. So only in September the weekends are open. But I want you to just this is maybe for next park committee, but look forward to second weekend in October. We're actually gonna keep the rides going. We normally take them down, right away. We're actually gonna keep them up, and we're gonna do a Fright weekend where we do rides on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the second weekend of October. We kind of have a Fright Fest where we have spooky themed stuff going on, zombie cutouts and decorations and costume contests and stuff like that. So that's new this year, so that'll be fun. And then we got our 4K program starting up in September again with 2 classrooms this year instead of 1, so it's exciting, and that's about it.
Questions?
No questions, but commend you guys and Alderman Weary on the inflatables at Colburn. I mean, wow, what a huge hit those things have been. Pool's crowded every time I've gone there, and it just shows the demand really is there if you improve it.
Yep.
So looking forward to that.
Did you make
Fam-
it across?
I did not try it, but the boys did, and actually to the staff, your staff there, the lifeguards, my boys have been wanting to jump off the diving board all summer long, and little by little inching them towards there, and the lifeguards had them do the swim test to make sure they could, and both of them this weekend jumped off the diving board, so big accomplishment for them. But
I think I saw him climbing the big mountain and jumping.
yeah,
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it didn't hurt the pool season. That was a very warm summer too.
That's true.
That definitely helped us. So
Good job helping it along here and there. It needed a little TLC along the way, so good job.
yep, that's the director's report.
All right.
Move to receive and place on
Motion by
file.
Alderman Burnett to receive and place on file.
Second?
Second by Alderman Johnson. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, next park committee meeting scheduled for September 12th. I believe council's the 19th. Or no, 18th, right? Or Wednesday is the 12th. Following Tuesday. Or is this 2 weeks ahead?
Council is the 21st.
Okay. I don't know, do we need to do anything with this one, or just acknowledge that that's our tentative?
Yeah, it's
meeting?
just
Yeah.
acknowledging.
Yep.
Move to adjourn. Alderman Burnett, second by
Second.
Alderman Johnson. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Done. See, our meeting was much shorter than the last 2. Man, last night,